Hey you guys, and welcome to today's live video. My name is Nikki C. Patterson, owner and operator of I Prevail K through 12 Educational Consulting and I Prevail K through 12 Academic Learning Center. As an educational consultant, I teach parents how to disrupt the one-size-fits-all practices, policies, and procedures of the public school system so that their child can receive a quality education. And typically I don't do videos, but if you see me coming in, normally it's because a parent has asked me a question. But today we're going to change that up. So today is not an inquiring minds want to know. Today is actually a truth bomb. And today's truth bomb is when passion meets purpose, what happens? So let's get started. All right, so purpose is basically what we're put here to do. I think a lot of people miss their purpose because we're trying to become successful at what life and society tells us that we're good at. But sometimes when you have a passion and it meets purpose, no matter how much you try, you cannot get rid of it. You can't get out of it, and there's no escaping it. And that's what I found myself doing over the last 10 years. I've told you guys that I grew up in poverty. Of course, you can see I'm a black girl. Black girls rock. And I also went to a low performing school that was majority black. But when I got to high school, my high school had basically little, very little cultural diversity. And so those things started to come together to form what I believe now is my purpose. Because anytime a parent reaches out to me, it's along those lines. They're coming from poverty and they want to know, Nikki, how did you make it out? If you came in poverty, you grew up in poverty and now you're not living in poverty anymore, how did you make it out? If you went to a low performing school and not only did you graduate high school, but you also went on to graduate college and you seem to have done things by the book. How did you do it? And so a lot of times people are asking me questions from my own personal experiences. And today is no different. I wanted to come in and share how my personal experiences have not only shaped my belief about the decision that recently happened in Assumption Parish. If you're not familiar with it, our board recently decided not to renew our superintendent's contract. And a lot of people are at odds over it. One thing that I can say about our district, we have been separated by race. We have some communities that are majority white. We have some communities that are majority black. And so a decision like this, when it hits the media and it said it was voted along party lines, a lot of people are having concerns about it and they're having questions and frustrations are coming up. But the one thing that I feel comfortable about is that God is getting the glory. We have been praying for a change in the parish for a long time. Our black schools have been failing for a long time. And a lot of people are pointing that out. Hey, it's not Mr. Cavillion's fault that the schools are failing. They were failing before he came to the district. So why is he now having to be tasked with fixing those schools? Why didn't we task the previous superintendent with fixing those schools? And so we didn't give him enough time. I think we should renew the contract and so many different things. And one thing that I never like to do is go off of secondhand information to provide my response to anything. And so today's truth bomb is going to come in to give my own personal experiences about what happened and how we can move forward as far as creating a plan to fix those low performing schools. Because like I've said, it doesn't matter what ideas you have, if you do not have the pen to make sure that those ideas are written or rewritten, then you can't control any decision that's being made. Excuse me. And as black parents and residents of this community, we have not controlled the pen on any decision that is being made. And so for me, a lot of people are saying, well, Nikki, where do you fit in? I'm a fair-minded person, and I always believe that whatever God wills shall happen. So whatever decision happened, I just believe that, you know what, God is going to get the final say. So that's my belief on that. But what I will address is a lot of people are saying that we have not given Mr. Cavillion enough time to fix the low performing schools and that the schools were lower performing prior to him getting here. And what can we do because it's parent concern and we need to fix the home life before we can fix the schools. And although some of that, there may be some truth to some of that, I do have some concerns with what's being said. And here's why. In about probably 2015, 2016, a group of parents and community leaders from the Belrose community created what was known as the Products of Belrose Schools Committee. And we had concerns with the quality of education that our children were receiving. We also had concerns about the lack of diversity that was in this black school. For example, Belrose Primary and Belrose Middle have predominantly been black schools. But at one point in time, Belrose Primary's campus consisted of about 90% white teachers and 2 white administrators, servicing about 85 to 95% black students. And so when we look at the data and we saw that these schools were DF schools and they weren't growing, I started researching, trying to figure out why. And I started looking at a study from Johns Hopkins University. And one thing that was glaringly obvious, it stated that a black student living in low income communities would do better if having one black teacher, at least one black teacher from second through fourth grade. If they have one black teacher from second through fourth grade, they're more likely to graduate high school. If they have one black teacher from fifth to sixth grade, they're more likely to go on to college. If we're building college and career ready students and we cannot equip our schools with black teachers, it's not a race issue, it's a data issue. And as some educated people, why aren't we using the data to drive our decisions? And so it takes me to me going before the board. When the previous superintendent was here, our committee met with the superintendent and we presented a list of recommendations of what we wanted to see. Those things were not implemented. We met with the superintendent, we met with district leaders. Some of those district leaders are still here. And we presented a list of findings of things that needed to change in order for those schools to improve. A lot of those recommendations fell on deaf ears. And so we decided at that point in time, it wasn't just a student issue, it was a mindset issue. And so rather than getting frustrated or upset when the superintendent announced that he would be retiring, I prayed on what God wanted to do and how he wanted to move forward. And so when the new superintendent came in, I allowed him to get acclimated and just settle in. And then probably within a month or two after him being here, getting worked into the system, I sent him an email, and it was a welcome email, and it basically introduced who I was and what some of the concerns I had for the parish, and that I would love to partner with him so that we can fix those schools. This was in summer of 2018. We're in now spring of 2020. That's almost 2 years later. So when we're saying that he didn't have enough time, I beg to differ, because I've not only worked in Belrose Primary as a teacher, Belrose Middle as a teacher and an interventionist. I worked in the action program at Napoleonville Middle School, and I also worked in Labradorville Middle School. Those are all low performing schools. And so I was able to succeed as a teacher. Anyone who would ever pull my data would be able to see, yeah, she was successful as a teacher. So when I'm going to come to you and I'm going to present this to you, it's not like you don't have the information to pull my data to see how successful I was as a teacher. When I resigned from the school system in 2017, it was so that my own son could get a quality education. And I knew that if I was a great teacher to help thousands of over 1,000 students in the public school system for more than a decade to get a quality education, then I knew I didn't want my own son to struggle when he was going to be starting his foundations. Because as a former fifth grade teacher, I had seen far too many students come into my classroom being unable to read and write. And that's because the lower level had not provided a solid foundation. And so that was one of the recommendations that I presented early on to Mr. Kuvillian, as far as, hey, these lower levels are not performing well. So when they get to the middle school or the high school, they're unable to read and write and comprehend. And I provided several other things to him. Well, like I said, that was summer of 2018. I requested a meeting. However, that meeting didn't happen. The first time that Mr. Kuvillian and I met was actually when I went in as a concerned parent and resident of the Belrose community. And this meeting was to address the comment that one of his administrators, assistant principal, had made to some black students. She basically referred to them as ghetto savage thugs. And some of the parents from the community had basically called on me to ask me would I sit in with the committee and be a part of the committee to help them to voice their concerns. Even though I had requested a meeting with Mr. Kuvillian in June and July and August and September and October, I was never granted permission as a parent with concerns for my own son to be given a meeting. However, we showed up at the board meeting one night and we addressed our board members from the Belrose community, Mr. John Beck, Mr. Honoré Lewis, Mr. Washington, Daniel Washington. We addressed those guys and we said, this is our concerns. We've been trying to meet with the superintendent and nothing's happening. And so they were able to get the meeting with the superintendent. And so I know a lot of times the people have said Mr. Quvillian has had an open door policy, but as Black residents and parents, I didn't see that open door policy. And so during the meeting, when we went to address the Ghetto Savages Thugs comment with him, he again mentioned that he had an open door policy and anybody can email him and request a meeting. And at that meeting, during that time, I literally pulled out my phone to show him an email that I had sent to him requesting a meeting. And his response was he did not have time to meet with parents. And I showed it to him and I showed it to the people that were in the room. At that time, we had about 5 to 6 different parents or community leaders in the meeting, and we all heard the same thing. So when people are coming from 2 different sides and they're having their opinions about who someone is based on what they perceive, everyone has their own different ideas and opinions and experiences with people. And we need to all just come to a realization that one person can be one way with another person and one way with someone totally different. But we need to respect each other's ideas about who someone is to that person because of the experiences they've had with them. So that didn't stop the experiences that I had, even though that was the first meeting. That wasn't the last meeting. Mr. Quvillian and I continued to go back and forth as far as email and what does the district need to improve, and some of the things that the policies I've asked to discuss. And one of the things was we had 25 minutes to go into our child's classroom to sit and, observe the class, see if we can help out, do whatever. We couldn't move. We couldn't do anything, just sit in the back of the classroom. And I said I had a concern about that. But here's what didn't hinder or it didn't stop. Even though we only had 25 minutes to go into the classroom to sit, as a parent, I adhered to that rule. But then after the meeting, as a parent and a consultant, I would sit with leaders for 2 and 3 hours to discuss the concerns based on what I saw. And I was excited to be able to share those things. And a lot of those things rolled over into what we call the Big 10 goals and the community meetings, the town hall meetings. And so I've always been vocal about expressing my concerns and sharing what I felt needed to be improved and just different things. And in February of last year, Mr. Quvillian and I had an opportunity to walk the campus of Napoleonville, going into different classes to see what we saw needed to improve and, just make recommendations. And I had an opportunity to speak again with some district level supervisors and directors. And the conversations were always enlightened. And so when I got invited to be a part of the Big 10 Goals Committee, I accepted that role and I was excited to go. And that meeting was in May of 2019. And I'm just giving you a progression of what's happened and how I feel like we've had enough time to improve those Black schools if we would have been putting intentional effort behind them. And so in May of 2019, I went into the meeting and there were several people there. And if one of the issues that I've brought to you was a lack of cultural diversity, why am I sitting in a meeting with over 20 representatives and only 3 of us are Black? Only 3 of us. There are parents there, but there are no Black parents there. There are white parents there. There are white community leaders there, but there are no outside influences as far as the Black community. I'm a former teacher and there were 2 other employees there who were Black. But there was no community representation from the Black community. And so for me, I had always been telling Mr. Quvillian and several others, it's a mindset issue. If we're going to change things, we need to first change our minds about how we see those things. And to see that people are saying that this decision was based upon race without actually using data that says, hey, you know what? Napoleonville Primary is has a major Black population, student population, but there's not one Black teacher on campus when my son was there. They have 2 white administrators. If the data says that a Black student from poverty is going to go further with at least 1 Black teacher on campus, then at least surely we can get a Black teacher on a campus that has Black students that live in poverty. But we didn't do that. And so when people are now outraged that the black people in the community, the black parents are asking for change, why? Why? I don't understand it. And so for me, I needed to come in and drop this truth bomb. I have no bones in this because in May, when I realized that the mindset of the people who I was meeting with was archaic and set in their ways, and a lot of things were coming down the pipeline that we had been doing, and it was still going to take another 3 years before we saw results, I decided that when those results were going to come, my son was going to be going to second grade in August of 2019, third grade in August of 2020, fourth grade in August of 2021. Guess when they were going to see results? 2022. That was going to be when my son was in fifth grade. And as a former fifth grade teacher, I could not sit by and watch them try to get it together while my son struggled to get a solid foundation. So I pulled him. So when people are asking and seeing, excuse me, he didn't have enough time, did he intentionally work towards fixing those schools? Because if you have someone who's literally said, hey, I have a book about the problems that's going on in this school. I'm a former teacher and I have 10 years of experience working in many of your low performing schools. I'm a parent who's substituted and been in these schools and worked with these teachers, and I've had success. If you need me, I'm available. This wasn't for a fee or anything. This was literally to make sure that our school started to see some improvement. And because the mindset wasn't conditioned to, I'm not sure what it was, but I know it was a mindset thing that needs to happen with a lot of our leaders in this district. And I say all of that to say, guys, if before we're going to see any progress in our lowest performing schools, we need to be the change that we seek. We need to be that change. We can't reach across party lines and say, hey, we want you to help us fix our schools. We need to fix them. We need to fix them. So you know what your child needs. And if you don't know, then I guarantee you there's someone there who can tell you what the issues are, what the problems are. But if we're sitting here and we're still singing Kumbaya and we're still trying to say, you know what, I'm going to assimilate because I don't want to be seen as someone who's a noisemaker or a troublemaker, your child's going to fail. And I'm not talking about in a grade level. I'm talking about fail to make the progress that they need to make. I am not willing to gamble on my child. And so instead of coming in and saying inquiring minds want to know, I want to give you that truth bomb. I've had an opportunity to work with district and school leaders, including Mr. Cavillion. And I felt like we had more than enough time to see some progress. From a D to an F to an F to... No, we had a lot of time if we were making true investments into those schools. So it's my prayer that whoever gets the position next, that they intentionally invest in our Black schools. Someone may say, well, we don't have funds and there's no money available. But here's the deal. There are people available who are willing and ready to give you the information and knowledge you need to improve those schools. The question is your mind ready to experience it? Is your mind ready to receive it? And if it's not, then you have to check your heart. But stop checking these parents and checking their homes and checking these students' home life. Start checking what's going on in the system. If there's 10 schools and we only have 3 Black leaders out of 20 something, that's a problem. And then I say that's a problem because under Mr. Cavillion's leadership, there was more than enough time for him to hire more Black leaders, but we didn't. So when we're talking about getting rid of the good old boy system and keeping this, the good old boy system was basically hiring white males. It wasn't just hiring someone from outside of the district. We can all look at it and say, come from our different perspectives of what should change and how it should change. But until we come together and create a consensus of what things look like and what things aren't, then we're going to continue to suffer the same fate. And unfortunately, it's our Black schools that's failing. So if you guys want to continue to go around the mulberry bush and the merry-go-round and continue to sing the same old songs, continue. But I guarantee you that there's a better way than what we are choosing to do. So if you have any questions, guys, please do not hesitate to contact me. Passion has definitely met purpose. There's no way that I, as a Black woman, could have attended low-performing schools, lived in poverty, attended majority Black schools, attended a school that had very little integration and lack of cultural diversity, and then God not call me to help fix this area. The problem is whoever has the pen writes the narrative and rewrites the narrative. And fortunately for a lot of the black schools and black parents now, the black board members have more power than they've had in the past. Do they have all power? No, because there's still more white board members than black board members. But I pray that if we're going to truly come together, then we truly do what's in the best interest of our children. So if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. You can send me an email to info@nikkicpatterson.com. You can visit my website to see how I've helped my own son to receive a quality education, www.nikkicpatterson.com. You can follow us on Facebook, Nikki C. Patterson, or you can check out our YouTube page and see what videos I've dropped for my own son's teaching experiences. And that's Nikki C. Patterson. Like I said, it is go time. It is truly time for us to be the success and the help we seek. Have a great day. Bye.